This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is March 21st, 2017, and this is episode number 14. Let's do this.
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we're talking to vocalist Brandon Kellum from the band American Standards about the Arizona music scene, the media's influence on society, and political perspectives within our society. Then on Open Mic's Last Call, we'll talk about President Trump's budget proposal, and we'll quickly follow up on the debt ceiling. So let's get to the political mosh pit, but first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to raise the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point, bringing it to 3/4 to 1%. For some time, the committee has judged that if economic conditions evolved as anticipated, gradual increases in the federal funds rate would likely be appropriate to achieve and maintain our objectives. Today's decision is in line with that view.
That was Janet Yellen, the Federal Reserve Chair, on Wednesday as the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by 0.25%, sending them to an even 1%. This is the second such move in 3 months, signs from the Federal Reserve that the economy is getting stronger. In Utah, the Utah House Legislature voted 59-12 to pass HB 349, which is a bill that would require the use of ranked choice voting. The bill is waiting on a vote in the Utah State Senate. Federal judge in Hawaii blocks Trump's second travel ban, and Trump had a typical reality TV star reaction.
A judge has just blocked our executive order on travel and refugees coming into our country from certain countries. The order he blocked was a watered-down version of the first order that was also blocked by another judge and should have never been blocked to start with.
Someone should really tell him that he doesn't need to yell when he's using a microphone. President Trump released his budget proposal making major cuts to domestic programs such as the EPA and Health and Human Services. But the budget also proposes massive spending increases for the military, VA, and Homeland Security. It also allocates $2 billion for that big, beautiful wall that Mexico is not going to pay for. Saturday, rock and roll pioneer and music legend Chuck Berry has passed away at the age of 90, but his influence on music will live on forever. FBI Director James Comey testified before the House Intelligence Committee about Trump's accusation of a wiretap in Trump Tower.
With respect to the president's tweets about alleged wiretapping directed at him by the prior administration, I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI. The Department of Justice has asked me to share with you that the answer is the same for the Department of Justice and all its components. The department has no information that supports those tweets.
Comey also signaled that the FBI is indeed investigating the Russian interference with the 2016 election, as well as the Russian connection to President Trump.
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts. As with any counterintelligence investigation, this will also include an assessment of whether any crimes were committed. Because it is an open, ongoing investigation and is classified, I cannot say more about what we are doing and whose conduct we are examining.
And on this day in rock history, March 21st, 1961, the Beatles performed their first ever evening show at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, UK. And that's the news of the week! In the world of punk, metal, and hardcore bands, they all seem to take themselves so seriously, and often rightfully so. However, the band American Standards is a breath of down-to-earth, fresh air in a scene of stagnant seriousness. American Standards is a chaos-driven noise phenomenon hailing from the deserts of Phoenix, Arizona. These guys are determined to prove that bands can make it without a label, a true do-it-yourself punk mentality. And they're showing us that they can have fun along the way. I was able to get Brandon Kellum, the lead singer for the band, to join us here in the Political Mosh Pit. But before we get to that, let's hear one of their songs. Here's The Red Queen by American Standards. Alright, and that was Red Queen by American Standards. And I have Brandon here from American Standards. How's it going?
Pretty good, Michael. How about yourself?
Good, good. So, I know you guys are having a new album coming out. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, we'll actually be putting out our first full-length album that's been 5 years in the works at this point. Pretty much several EPs that we worked through to get to this point, and April 15th will be the release date, and the album is going to be called The Anti-Melody.
Nice. I like that name. That's cool. And yeah, we caught Brandon. He's out on the road right now, so we have a little background noise, but it's super punk rock. That's how we're doing it. And I actually saw you guys have gone through quite a bit of lineup changes, but as of right now, we have you're on vocals, and then we have Corey on guitar, Steven on bass, and Mitch on drums, correct?
You got it. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride where I feel like every year or two we switch out our drummers. But this lineup is definitely a really solid lineup. Yeah. Nice. It's something about drummers. I think every every kid wants to play drums, but either their parents can afford it because it's a little more on the expensive side when it comes to instruments, or it's just too damn loud and they don't want to put up with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or their neighbors are just
typically they fall back
cool
to getting like that Fender starter kit.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, there are a lot of drums, but you said you like this lineup, huh? That's sound.
Yeah, this lineup for us is definitely been one of our more solid lineups, and I think every band probably says that this is the best lineup we've ever had. But truly going into this, I think Mitch, especially on drums, is just way too damn talented. Sooner or later, he's going to find out that he's better than us and leave us as well. But for the time being, it's really solid.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, the drummers, though, I mean, we can't, we don't want to shit on them too much because, man, the drums, that's like the backbone of a song. If you have a solid drummer putting some good fills in there, it really can add a lot to the songs. So that's cool.
Yeah, very true. If we were any more poppy or anything like that, we might be able to get away with a drum machine, but it just doesn't work for punk rock or metal, right?
Yeah, definitely. The drum machine is, if you're gonna do that, you kind of got to go like all out synth, which that's definitely cool. But yeah, it's a totally different feel. Yeah, I don't know if a drum machine would work too well for you guys. I would love to see you guys live. You guys are out in Arizona. Bisbee, was it, or?
No, we're actually in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh,
but we do. Okay. You probably saw we have a show in Bisbee randomly in a few weeks here, which is a really small ghost town up in or up down in southern Arizona. So we're playing there in a few weeks, and that place, population is probably 1,000 people maybe. So it should be a good time.
Yeah, I lived out in Mesa out for a few years out there. The music scene it's quite vital, actually. The metal scene's pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I think Arizona and Phoenix in particular, the Valley is really a music hub, much like, LA and Houston, Austin, those types of places where we've got so many bands, we've got a ton of venues. Any given night, you've got 5 or 10 shows going on. So it's really great to start a band. It's really great to find shows. It's no lack of musicians by any means, but at the same time, you are any given night competing against 5 or 10 other shows. So there's a give and take in that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword in a way. Have you guys
exactly,
played up?
Yeah.
Have you one of my favorite places up in Arizona is Prescott. I'm sure you guys have played up in Prescott. You got to tell everyone about that little town.
Absolutely, yeah. Prescott is great because it's about an hour and a half north of Phoenix.
Yeah,
and it's a very small town, much like Bisbee. They get a show or so, every couple of weeks, but everybody just comes out to support. So we have played there a few times over the last 5 years. The very last time we played there was just about a year ago at a coffee shop up there. And I don't know that they knew exactly what they're in store for at the time. So they brought, 3 or 4 hardcore bands through a coffee shop absolutely wrecked the place by the end. But it was definitely a good time.
Well, I guess if you drank enough caffeine, you could eventually get on that level, But
right? I mean,
yeah.
Everybody's doing circle pits and espresso shots.
Yeah. For some reason that seems to mix well together. That sounds like good times. But yeah, Prescott's always cool because they always have bands up there, and then the locals always go out to the shows and support all the bands. So if anyone's ever driving through or checking out in the Arizona area, I would always recommend checking out a show up in Prescott or out in Phoenix, obviously. All right, man.
Yeah, the best thing about Prescott, too, is they actually have some of my favorite bands that have ever come out of Arizona have been from this little small town of Prescott. You've got bands like Life in Pictures, our most recently Prize Fight. They're all just really, really solid bands, and they come from this small little town and just do really cool things.
That town, it has a Whiskey Row right there. It just like breeds music and, having fun and getting some drinks. And so I can imagine why people from that town would get so good or have such a tight band.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to check out some of those bands in the future. We're gonna play "Raised by Wolves" right now. Is there anything you want to say about that one?
No. Well, "Raised by Wolves" was actually off our first release, "Still Life," which we put out in 2012. Seems like forever ago. Right. So this was with our original lineup. And if anything, this is the one song on the album I regret not putting out as a single or doing a video for. We did 2 videos. We did one for Harvester and one for Still Life. But when I look back at this album, I always think that's probably the Red Queen's one of our more solid songs from that album, and we still to this day play it at every show we've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I definitely really digged Red Queen and Raised by Wolves. So here we go. Let's listen to, here's Raised by Wolves by American Standards.
You've been misled. You've been fighting the heart, but you don't want to die on the line. Who is one? The one who's fading you life, or you for just falling apart. Raised by wolves. Why can't raised by wolves? We're raised by wolves. Flash, they're worried inward. Am I the hunter or the hunted? But I guess we'll find out the answer when we're both dead. Why not? Why compete? Why don't they cry? Why fight for so much more, but always settle for so much less? The dream is over. The dream is over. The dream is over now. The dream is over. The dream is over. The dream is. Been misled. You've been fighting the heart, 'cause you don't want to die on the love. Who is worse? The one who's fading you life, or you for just falling them all.
All right, well, once again, that was Raised by Wolves by American Standards. So, Brandon, here, let's get to the political mosh pit. So today we're going to be talking about media's influence in our culture. So, I know one of your songs previously, you had a little line I thought was kind of cool. It said, a revolution built upon sound bites. It was from Red Queen. We heard that earlier. So what does that mean?
Yeah, for me, I think that particular line, and actually feeding into a lot of what we're doing on the anti-melody, still rings kind of relevant to us, is I think now more than ever, the media has this influence on the way that our culture is. I think in the past, the media's always kind of had this this hold on. You see a headline, and that headline is taken for face value. It's the media has this kind of, I guess, implicit bias that the headlines are really what sells. But the difference is in the past, what sold was selling papers, selling newspapers, which were not necessarily catered to the younger crowd. I think what's very unique about now is that same model of creating this headline, this thing that grabs your attention, is now consumed by a much younger generation on social media.
Yeah.
It's much more shareable. And when it's shared, people don't tend to click through and actually find out what the actual body or the content of that is. They see the headline and they just share it or repeat it on to their friends, their co-workers, their family. They don't double check to see if this is actually something of value or credible. There's no accountability in there. Absolutely. I mean, if anything, the outlets have this external influence to say, how can we get more eyes on this? And by getting more eyes, it's creating that clickbait, creating that trigger type title that gets people to share it. However, at the end of the day, it's like in the past where we had these newspapers, which obviously we still do, but that's not the way that we're necessarily consuming now. Yeah. We didn't really have an easy way to fact check and to see if whatever's being fed to us is the true, the true full story. Now more than ever, we have this easy way to check multiple sources and see if what we're consuming is actually the truth. But instead of doing that, we just move on to the next thing. So we're constantly consuming, never validating that information. And it all works against us because the way that things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other social media is built on an algorithm that shows you exactly what's being fed to you. And as you look at it, as you spend more time with your eyes on it or clicking through, it's going to feed you more and more of that. So what we're doing is we're just typing into Google a search that only validates what our belief already was. We're not seeing anything that contradicts what we already believe.
Exactly. That's such a great point. And then the few people who may pierce through that, maybe friends or family who have different opinions or different political views, we go in, or not, but society goes and blocks them. Especially we saw that in this last election cycle. That was a huge problem. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
So now we're all just in echo tunnels.
And it only gets worse. And it's not always working for or against us. It's just the way the machine is built. Meaning, if you're someone that believes in something like, say, the flat Earth conspiracy, you surround yourself with friends that probably also believe that. And when you see that come through your feed, you probably spend a little more time looking at it. It builds into the algorithm. You click through, it builds into the algorithm. Now everything that you see on your feed, regardless as pertaining to this flat Earth theory, that only validates the idea that you already had in your mind. So you're never seeing an alternating view of anything, not only from that perspective, but politics, religion, science, or otherwise. Yeah,
exactly. So, like you said, whatever you see coming back at you basically is just validating your beliefs or your perspective.
Exactly. And I mean, we do have the opportunity, like I said, going back to the kind of the analogy of the difference between the newspapers and now what we have now is we have the opportunity to really go through and see the other perspective, but it's not built in the favor of us doing that. It's built in the favor of just consuming the next thing and consuming the next thing.
Yeah, definitely. And that also kind of teeters off into this whole this fake news thing from this last election cycle. The Democrats and everyone wants to blame fake news from trying to sway the election and blaming it on Russia, when really, to me, the more and more I read into it, it just seems like it's a bunch of kids over in that area of the country or that area of the world trying to make money on a bunch of clickbait. Did they really have nefarious
Yeah. I mean, we are the news at this point.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, that was another one of my questions I wanted to ask you. We know now the news media is owned, 90% of it is owned by 6 major companies. So how do you think that's coming into play with all this?
Yeah, I think it's changing every day, right? I think you see that there are obvious of media and news that's being pushed out to us, but I think the thing that people trust the most is what they see from their media, their peers, their friends, their coworkers, and otherwise. So it does, obviously what they're sharing in some way builds into the thoughts that they're seeing from these large media conglomerates. But at the same time, we should be held accountable, if anything, to say if we're going to support something or we're going to push something, we've actually done the work to understand that one thing. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not insanely political, but I'm not the most political guy by any means, or not religious by any means at all. But at the same time, I never push something that I don't truly understand. So before I, speak on something, I always try to really understand the other side of it.
Definitely.
And I think that's the hard part, because it takes longer to do that. And it's so much easier to see something be packaged in black and white and just push that on to the next thing and consume the next thing down the line.
Yeah. And when you do that, what you're talking about doing is looking into the other side and reading the perspective from the other side. What that might do is question your views even more. Uh-oh. The police are after us.
They've already heard too much.
I know. The CIA, they're like, oh, the NSA sent someone to go.
They're dragging me away. They've been monitoring our Skype call.
Yeah.
No, I think it's about the nuance. I think in anything that it's never black and white subject is. There's never a clean black and white version of that subject. There's all this nuance, but what's easy to digest is black and white. So the media takes it and they say, this is exactly how it is. There's no nuance, and this is the way you should think or feel. We as people do that when we look at politics. The parties are black and white. People feel like they can't believe in things from both, and they can't pick their own path. When you look at religion, people take their religion for face value without actually truly using critical thinking to understand, maybe the truth that's been packaged isn't the full truth, and I can kind of find out my own truth.
Yeah. Definitely. But that's what I think people are afraid of is that they look at the other side, or they look at it through a different perspective, and it kind of shakes their own belief, or it makes that black and white not so black and white, more gray, and it kind of distorts their reality. And I think that's terrifying for some people.
Yeah, because you feel like, I think every person wants to feel like they're part of this group. It's the tribe mentality.
Yeah.
And when you have a different belief than the rest of your tribe, you feel like an outcast from that tribe. So it's much easier to have a package. These are your set steps or your set beliefs, and you live by this, and everybody in your tribe lives by it. So the fear comes from thinking that if you think otherwise, then these people might not accept you for that thought or belief.
Yeah, exactly. So they just keep on, like I said, yelling into that small echo chamber, the same thing over and over. So what do you think the media, the news media in particular, how do you think that turning into more entertainment has affected all this? Have you seen that personally?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now it seems like everything you watch when it comes to politics or TV or media is entertainment. I think the thing we've done is we've said, the more eyes that you have on this, the more dollars that you get. So naturally, human instinct is to say, how can we skew this, or how can we position this in a way that gets people to watch this? So with the news, I mean, we've always seen the whole idea where they could leave you with a cliffhanger and just say 10 billion people possibly dead. More after the break. It gets you to stay there to see what's going to happen here. And then you come back and it's a little bit lackluster. But a lot of people don't even come back to after the break, and then they just repeat whatever they heard, the 5 seconds prior.
Yeah, and then when people repeat things, it's like that old game Telephone. One person says something, and then it totally just gets skewed by the time it gets 2 or 3 people down the line. Yeah. In
today's world, going back to kind of we are the news, and we the people are actually the media more than ever, it's so easy to share it. It's so easy to push that out, not only to your immediate friends and family, but to the world, to push your thoughts out on the internet. And that's really, I think, what's changed and what will continue to change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what we're doing right now. We've connected. You're just hanging out at a coffee shop over in Arizona. I'm over here in Southern California, just in a little room on my microphone, and we're putting this podcast out. We're going to share your music, talk about politics, and people are going to consume this. And before, you'd have to have some sort of gatekeeper in order to put this out there. And now there's no gatekeeper needed. And I think that terrifies those 6 companies.
Yeah, everybody has their own platform. Everybody has their own soapbox to yell from. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting because at the same time that it empowers every person, it also creates more noise than ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the people making the most noise is what rises to the top. The most extreme version of any one thing is what gets shared the most, where the business as normal, the down the line, which normally probably has a little more truth in it, is what kind of falls to the bottom.
Yeah, you get on both sides, you get the extremes rising to the top. And then the people, just average news consumers who don't consume too much, they see these extremes and they see, wow, both sides are that extreme. I think people are kind of like, wow, this is crazy. And then they just turn it all off.
Yeah. I mean, you see things like, the one that comes to mind right away is this Now This is a really popular Facebook one. And not to discount some of their ideas or thoughts, but a lot of the times they cut things in such a way that they could really make you believe anything, because you're not only hearing the story, but you're seeing the video, and right away you say, well, this has got to be true. I literally watched it myself, but you didn't watch the hours of editing that went into making that view appear like it's the truth.
And I think that I think that's New York Times. Is
it part of New York Times?
Yeah, I think it's New York
Times.
Makes sense. Yeah, and that's another thing. I was full-blown hardcore liberal, for many, many years. I consider myself very, very far to the left. However, after watching this last 2016 election, just watching the news media bend over backwards to promote Hillary and trash Trump I don't like Trump, but it was beyond obnoxious. And I saw how, like you said, certain things would be edited always to help Hillary and always to hurt Trump. And she still didn't win, which I thought was pretty astounding. But
yeah, it's insane, right?
Yeah, it really lifted the veil almost for me, and being like, wow, I always knew conservative media was kind of bad, but now, wow, yeah, liberal media is just as bad.
Yeah, it's interesting not to not to say like one side is better than the other, but it's a point where now, the Democrats are on a completely different side of the coin, and we're starting to say the same things that we might have heard from the Republicans, but we're facing a whole different battle than they were now more than ever, especially with the way the Senate and the House are.
Yeah. Before, I was like, well, Democrats aren't that bad, but they're a lot better than Republicans. Now it's like both parties are totally corrupt and work for the corporations, and I don't know who to trust. So,
it makes it comes back to the point, like, if people had the courage to pick and choose what was right and only go with what was their truth, we may be in a much better place than saying, I either have to take side A or side B.
Yeah, and then the clickbait is just exacerbating all this. Yeah.
True. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, so I personally, I don't really see an end to this. I see it only beginning, and I only see it worse. I remember the good old days back when YouTube didn't have any ads, and now, you have to have the ads on there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because kind of going back to the fact that now more than ever, I think younger generations are being exposed to this type of news, are being exposed to politics, are being more active. That's obviously an absolutely a positive thing.
Oh yeah.
But the way that they're being exposed to it is very influential by the type of media that they're consuming. So I think it's definitely gonna continue to build. And I honestly only think the only thing that's going to improve this, unless it completely breaks entirely, is going to be people are going to have to realize that they're going to have to expose themselves to people and to things of alternating views that they believe, and they're going to have to be open-minded. They're going to have to listen more than they talk, and when they do that, they may understand more. Not to say that they're going to change their mind, but at the very minimum, they'll understand why someone believes the way they believe, whether it's because where they're born, the way they were raised, the people that they surround themselves with, or the media that they consume. To understand why someone believes something will help a lot more than to just argue back and forth on who's right or wrong, because everybody implicitly thinks that their truth is the only truth. So no one goes into it thinking that they're the ones that are saying the wrong thing or the thing that's on let's say the wrong side of the coin.
Yeah. You're so right. People, I've noticed on the news media and even on alternate like YouTube channels, if people do debate, usually it's just one group throwing talking points at another group and the other group repeating their talking points back at another group. They don't actually go into a substantive dialogue, which is so needed. Like you said, you don't have to agree with the other people, just at least understand where they're coming from.
Yep. Be willing to accept a different point of view, and be willing to the fact that after you hear something and actually truly listen to it, you may change your mind. It may not be the 180 that gets you on the other side, but it may bring you a little bit closer to them. I think something that a while back, and I kind of worked into some of the lyrics for the new album, is going into any debate, whether it's a political debate or say a debate with a friend or a loved one. You should always start on their side and work your way back until you find an understanding, instead of starting on your side, them starting on their side and trying to find the middle, because that's never going to work. That's just going to explode in your face.
Exactly. Once you find your common ground, and then you work out from there, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all want to be loved. We all want to love each other. We all want a house or a place to live. We all need food. All these things we all have this in common. So like you said, we need to understand we're all humans at the end of the day, and we all live in the same country. We all want the same things, but we just have different ideas on how to get there, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, 99.9% of people want to be on the right side of history, and whatever they believe right now is probably what they believe is the right side of history. So obviously there are people that in the future we'll find out are wrong and people that are right. But to understand why they believe what they currently believe, I think, is the important part.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's hard to have that kind of foresight. But man, this was a really good talk. I'm really happy to have you on, Brandon. We're gonna wrap it up. I want you to let everyone know what's the best way for them to find your music online.
Yeah, absolutely. You could post on any social media. We're pretty much /American Standards on anything, whether it be Facebook /American Standards, Twitter, or Instagram. We're also on any major streaming music site, as well as a lot of the minor ones like Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Pandora. So you'll find us anywhere you go there, or you could just find me on any of my personal social media, and we're always pretty quick to respond.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, I saw you guys posted you needed only a few more follows on Spotify to become verified. I followed you on there. Did you get the verified status?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, so we actually just submitted yesterday because we met that requirement. And really for us, what that's about is on Spotify, it's kind of interesting. They don't let an artist own their account until they've had so many followers.
Really?
But once the artist claim and own their account, they're then allowed to connect with fans directly. They're allowed to link up their Spotify to their show dates and their merch store. They're allowed to be added to different playlists. So it seems trivial, but at the same time, right now, Spotify is the main way that people are consuming music for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
So it's something that if we want to get out there to people, that was big for us.
Wow, yeah. I'm really happy you reached the goal. I think you're at like 97 or something when I followed you. So good job. Definitely everyone should go check out American Standards on Spotify, or if you're out in Arizona, go out and check them out in Bisbee, or they'll be out in Phoenix if you want to check them out. But hey, Brandon, we're going to let you go and we're going to head out. This is a brand new song off of your new album. It's called Writer's Block Party by American Standards.
Dancing around, left from various ends, stuttering on down, cages in our friends, so they are impressed, made myself to a hole, gave up my heart to find a soul, with my crown but cast in stone, making nothing so they know, the ground was born, no silence before the storm.
All right, that was American Standards. I just have my hair long for the first time in my life, so now I can actually like headbang. So that the music comes in handy because I could actually headbang now. So all right, welcome to Open Mic's Last Call. This is actually going to be a very interesting little segment here. I'm glad I waited a few days to record this. This has been a few days after the Trump budget proposal, keyword proposal, has come out. And at first I was kind of enraged. I was like, what? Pretty pissed off. Oh my God, they're going to take away Big Bird. They're going to kill Sesame Street. They're slashing the EPA. They're destroying everything. And then the more and more I looked into it, and the more I thought about it, my mind and my perception has been changing. And don't get me wrong, I do not agree with Trump's budget proposal. I don't agree with 90% of it. However, I do think he does have a point, and the Republicans have a point. We do need to cut things, and we do have to run a deficit neutral or a surplus, or else our country's just screwed. So I do agree with that. However, the way to get there, I do not agree. And everything they're cutting, essentially, is just adding on to the military. So let's kind of like get into the weeds of this. This is going to be kind of a longer little episode of Open Mic's Last Call, because I really wanted to devote a good amount of time to this, and I think it's kind of interesting. Also, it's just a proposal, so I really think Trump went all out, because that's how he is, and that's how his Art of the Deal statement, his book is. It's you go all out, kind of like in poker. You go all out. When you bargain with someone, if you want something for $50, and you're selling it, maybe you'll start out at 100 or 75, knowing that you're willing to go down to 75 or 50. And I think that's exactly what this budget proposal is. I don't think Trump actually wants to cut the EPA by as much as he's doing, or I don't think he actually wants to destroy or get rid of the National Arts Endowment. But I think he's kind of making a point, and he's kind of putting this is where he wants to start from. And if only Obama did this with the socialized universal single payer healthcare, and freaked the crap out of the Republicans, saying we're going to pass a Canadian style single payer healthcare system. Maybe the Republicans could have got on board back in 2009, and we could have actually had something that was compromised and bipartisan. But nope, Obama has no idea how to negotiate, and you do have to give Trump some credit here. He's negotiating in this, and he's doing it kind of the right way, even though I don't agree with it, and I'm sure a lot of you who's listening to this don't agree with it. So some programs and departments that would get 100% cut. So essentially they're just eliminated. The Community Development Block Grants. Another one is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The Weatherization Assistance Program. And see, that's a big thing, even in the EPA and in NASA. NASA, it's a 1% cut. I should have Space Mike on. But NASA, it's only a 1% cut. And that 1% cut that they're cutting is directly related to satellites that focus on climate change and climate research. So the only 1%, so that, and then that's a kind of a highlight through this, is a lot of the cuts that they did make is geared toward climate change, which is very interesting. Obviously, the Republicans, Trump, don't believe in climate change, so they want to get rid of those programs. Another one, Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. Another one completely eliminated is the National Endowment for the Arts. That's basically, and then this is the big one that's on the memes, is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And then there's a bunch of smaller bills and smaller grants, like the McGovern-Dole International Food and many more. So I'm going to go over a few more that are cut. And so it sounds like everything's getting cut, and we're adding more onto military, homeland security, which is going to be border control and ICE, essentially. So it sounds really horrible. It is pretty bad. And we're going to increase our military spending if this budget were to be approved, written up by Congress and approved by Congress and then signed by the president, which that's not going to happen. But if it were, we would be spending now more on our military than ever in the history of America. And then the Republican conservative argument is, we need a bigger military to deter terrorists, deter war, whatever. It's like, ever since 9/11, we've been incrementally spending more and more every year. Yet ISIS exists, and the war on terror is only getting worse and worse. We're only creating more terrorism. The more bombs we drop, the more terrorists we create. The more mothers and fathers that we kill, their children, they're going to be turned into terrorists. It's called blowback. Every innocent civilian you kill, this is a CIA term, every innocent civilian you kill, you create 10 new terrorists. So we go around bombing the Middle East, and Trump wants to put America first and bomb more countries more than ever, spend more than ever, and then shut the gates for all the refugees that are going to be created in these future conflicts that we're going to be starting, whether it's with North Korea or going into Syria. We'll see. All right, so let's talk more about a few more of the agencies. I guess it's 62 agencies total that they want to eliminate. So the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which receives right now $485 million a year, it might still get some federal funding in 2018, but then after it would be cut. So here's some more programs. The Department of Agriculture gets basically $498 million a year. Department of Commerce, $221 million. Minority Business Development Agency, $32 million. Department of Education would basically get severe cuts, which would be supporting effective instruction state grants program, 21st Century Community Learning Centers program. That's basically $1.2 billion would be cut. It goes on and on. So, but then in an article on Forbes, it was kind of I did really have a good point. I tend not really to always agree with Forbes because it's very, Wall Street and corporatist. But we are running a deficit every year. The 2016 deficit came back, and we had a deficit, and now the cap on federal spending has been set. It's not going anywhere, because about 3 episodes ago, before we talked about the debt ceiling and kind of the boring debt ceiling, and the debt ceiling has been capped, and it's going to be at $20 trillion. And right now, so we can't borrow any more money after $20 trillion. And right now, the national debt stands at $19.918 trillion. So basically, we have, 90 or 82 billion we could also borrow. So the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, he went into it's saving money mode, basically. So they're trying to decide what's discretionary versus mandatory. So they're going to have to cut something, because the fiscal year of 2016 federal spending was $3.854 trillion. So basically $3.9 trillion we spent. And for the fiscal year of 2016, and this is for everything, and we had a $587 billion deficit. So basically, we're losing $587 billion a year, and that's just getting higher and higher every year, and that's being added onto the debt, which is now 19.9 trillion, which is capped at 20 trillion. So we can't borrow any more money. So that brings me back to kind of Trump's budget. And as much as I hate how they are doing it, and much as I hate the idea of cutting all these things, it might be necessary. Not EPA 30%, and also not the, public broadcasting channel, but maybe it is to reevaluate how some of these things are paid for, and also how some of them operate. Maybe we can make cuts. And also a big meme that's going around is, Big Bird is going to be cut, And the thing is, the more I looked into it, Big Bird, they get their funding from the government is very, very small. And actually, Sesame Street specifically is owned by HBO now. And part of the deal for HBO picking up Sesame Street was that HBO would, after they created a few episodes, they would give them to PBS for free. So HBO is producing Sesame Street shows right now on their money. They're producing it and giving it to PBS for free. So the Big Bird meme is definitely kind of ridiculous that the liberals are putting out there. And then again, with the Meals on Wheels program that's going to be completely cut, I was outraged at first. And then the more people pointed it out and the more I looked into it, the federal government only pays 3% of the Meals on Wheels program. Now, do I think everything should be corporatized and given to the corporations? No, absolutely not. But do I think that the government spends way too much money and there's waste in the government? Of course. But the one crazy thing is that we're not even addressing military. And out of all non-discretionary spending, military is about 50% of that. The three main blocks is Medicare and then Social Security. Those are the two main blocks, about 60% of all the money we spend. And then there's the non-discretionary, which is military, and then everything else. And that's basically what this budget is touching. So that's what Trump can really cut. And he's not cutting the military, which needs to be cut. And then also we need to go in and look at Social Security and reevaluate how we do it. We can't privatize it. But then also with Medicare, if we did a single payer system, we might actually be able to lower the cost. But the healthcare industry does not want that. And that is a debate for a whole nother time. So let's recap today. We have the debt ceiling, which is now capped at $20 trillion. So we cannot borrow more than $20 trillion. And it was, I believe it was Moody's Standards & Poor's the last time we defaulted. Well, they lowered us from AAA down to AA. It was Moody's, I believe it was Moody's, who just said now that if we don't default, again, coming up, they're not going to downgrade us if we raise the cap. The debt ceiling. So we didn't do that. So we might get a downgrade from Moody's coming up here pretty soon, which wouldn't be devastating, but it definitely wouldn't be a good thing for Trump to have. So we'll see. At any time, the Congress can go eliminate the cap, or they can vote to lift the cap. But definitely, if they did that, it wouldn't fit the Republican narrative. So I just don't think they're going to lift the cap. And also, if the cap's there, it gives them an excuse to have to get rid of all these little programs and cut the EPA by 30% of its budget. It gives them, permission. Oh, well, we can't borrow anymore, so we have to cut all these things. And it's like, yes, it's good to cut stuff. However, we shouldn't just be cutting from public services, health and human services, and all these domestic spending just to increase our military spending. If we're going to be doing cuts, we should be doing cuts across the board. And we should be making things more efficient and more streamlined so we save money. So whatever we are cutting, services and programs aren't being destroyed. But this is way too complicated for Trump's businessman mentality. However, like I said, we can't just keep borrowing. We're at $20 trillion, and the liberals and everyone was they were upset and raising a huge fit when George Bush was in office, raising the debt. And Reagan, he was the first one, doubled the debt out of more than anyone before him. Same with George Bush, doubled the debt more than anyone before him. Obama doubled the debt, all the presidents combined. So they've all done it, and it's definitely a great talking point for either side. But then once the other side's in power, they kind of don't care. So it is very interesting that they're almost kind of playing chicken with the debt ceiling. I don't know. I would imagine that they would at least raise it another trillion or two just to make it through a couple years and then have an actual cap. Don't sunset it so you could vote on it again. But, maybe they just want to crash the economy so they could just rebuild from the pile of ashes that is after the economy collapses. Who knows? And then with the Feds raising interest rate to 1%, is basically, that's another little show. So if we do have a crash, the Feds can lower the rate again. So it's interesting times we are living in, my friends. Interesting times. And watching the budget getting debated in Congress, that will be interesting because, mark my words, 80% of this crap that Trump has in his budget isn't gonna pass. And I'm sure over half of the stuff Trump did put in there, I don't even think he actually wants to cut that much. I think he's just putting it in there kind of to bluff and to show his position on where he is, that he wants to cut things, and that's how he's starting his negotiation process. But trust me, a lot of Republicans are not going to vote to, cut Meals on Wheels programs, because then in 2018, the Democrats will just sweep the House. Or at least the very, very least, Republicans will lose their huge majority. Maybe even the Democrats could even win in the Senate. So, and then then Trump would basically lose all of his power. He would have essentially nothing. He would be able to pass nothing if that happened, if he had a Democratic-controlled House or Senate, or, if they got both, then they could actually start impeaching him. So this budget could definitely get him impeached if the Republicans were to pass it straight out. And I think Reince Priebus, I think he knows that, and I think they're smarter than actually pushing anything like this through, and a lot of the Republicans are too. But it's definitely scary, and it definitely makes some pretty scary memes and pretty good memes to be able to beat up on the Republicans. But when it comes down to it, liberals and conservatives, we all have to look at the budget, and we all have to look at the spending that America's doing and realize that something's wrong. Running a deficit of 580 something billion, essentially $500 billion a year, borrowing $500 billion a year, that's not sustainable. And the problem is, all of our ideas on how to get to a point where we can run a deficit neutral or even a surplus budget, we can't get to that point because we all have different ideas on how to get there. And Trump's budget is a direct visualization of why we can't get there. We just have two different ideas on how to get there, and this demonization on both sides kind of needs to be reeled back a little bit, because you know what? I'm definitely a liberal, and I am definitely an environmentalist, but the EPA may need cuts. It's not totally that crazy to think about. The EPA may need cuts. Also, likewise, the military needs cuts. So let's see what happens. I'm going to wrap this up. This is way too long. Sorry it took you this long, but thanks for checking out another episode of Punk Rock and Politics, and we'll check you out next week. Peace out. Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.